Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to N5D Radio's Cosmic Awakening Show, where we are serving this galaxy and beyond. My name is Michelle Walling, and I'll be your host for the next few hours. And if this is your first time with us, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm a certified holistic life coach, where I help people see the bigger picture. I'm also an author, guest writer, and admin for N5D.com and BodyMindSoulSpirit.com. I also have a website where I post all of my articles and my radio shows, and that's called CosmicStarseeds.com. And in my spare time, I also have another radio show called BMSS Radio, where I discuss the topics on BodyMindSoulSpirit.com on Blog Talk Radio on Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Tonight, I have a very special guest co-host I would like to introduce, Gregg Prescott. Gregg Prescott from N5D Radio is the sponsor that makes this show possible. Gregg is also the webmaster for N5D.com, the world's hottest esoteric, metaphysical, and spiritual database on the Internet. N5D.com is ranked in the top 25,000 websites in the world. Gregg updates the N5D news page every day, and you can check that out by clicking on the News tab from N5D.com. You will find a new article every day on N5D along with every day's alternative news. Gregg is also the webmaster for BodyMindSoulSpirit.com, which he also updates every day with several new articles. You can sign up for the newsletter by email and have those articles dropped into your inbox. So just go to the top right-hand corner on BodyMindSoulSpirit.com to sign up for that. So, without any further ado, Gregg Prescott, thank you for joining me today on the Cosmic Awakening Show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, here we are in Sarasota, Florida, where everybody else is in a polar vortex scenario. It did finally hit us about 3 days ago. We had a lot of rain all day, and then it got down into, the 50s, the 40s. It's been a little chilly here, but not too bad.
Yeah, it's been pretty chilly here, and got a lot of rain, and we got our socks on here in Florida. I know it sounds really bad, but normally I walk barefooted 365 days a year here in Florida, and I've actually got socks on. I know the people up north are not pitying me at all, but it got all the way down to 61 for our high today. So yeah, it was cold.
Not too bad, not too bad.
I'm
sorry. The Floridians are all walking around with their big coats on and their hats and their gloves and their big old moon boots and everything. But anyway, tonight I'd like to welcome all of you who are on Facebook, our Facebook friends and our Facebook groups. Gregg and I will have many cosmic Facebook groups we like to post in common. I'd like to give a special shout out to some of these groups tonight, and that would be the Enlightened Planet, Spiritual Blogs, and the group Portal to Ascension. And I'd like to say hello to everybody in the chat room tonight. I see one of my former guests, Missy Hill, is in the chat room, and hello, Bryn. Of course, Gregg and I will be checking the chat room occasionally to see if there's any questions that anybody that's too shy to call in would have. This week's topic is busting out of the matrix. In just a few minutes, we'll be bringing on our very special guest, Mr. Stewart Swerdlow. Our call-in number is area code 646-716 8890. If you have any questions, we'll be taking callers in the second hour of the show. Now, as far as busting out of the matrix, Gregg and I have written a series of articles on N5D about busting out of the matrix. And to read more about what the matrix is, you can go to N5D and search for any one of these articles. The first one is How to Exit the Matrix. I wrote that one. How to Exit the Reincarnation System by Gregg. Archons and Archangels by Gregg. And one of my favorites is Cameron Day's Why I Am No Longer a Lightworker. The premise of these articles is that if you are here right now on the planet, you're experiencing a fractal holographic matrix that has been created to trap and enslave humans for the purpose of harvesting energy from us. And Gregg and I are envisioning a positive timeline where we'll be lifting our consciousness out of the clutches of the archonic beings who have been in control of this matrix. So, Gregg, how would you describe this matrix that we're actually in right now?
Well, I would say that, we pretty much live in a binary system. And for those who are listening, everything basically boils down to a binary code. And what that is just a series or sequences of zeros, the numbers 0 and 1. And a lot of people have experienced the 1111 synchronicity, which is basically telling them that they're on the right path. Conversely, the matrix is being used against us, but with every computer program, there's also a way to get out in a safe mode.
Yes, it's kind of like when you reboot your system in safe mode. Hold on just a second. We've got Sammy over here, our N5D mascot, really going to town with a bone against the door. Thank you, Gregg. I don't know if you could hear that in the background, but it sounded like the walls were coming down. So anyway, back to this computer program, it is like rebooting the system in safe mode, but what we'd like to do is we'd like to hack into the computer system and change everyone's reality, and it starts one person at a time. And we'd like to talk to Stuart about this image that we have of this matrix. Stewart Swerdlow has truly experienced this matrix differently than anyone else on this planet. Stuart has the ability to see auric fields and personal archetypes, as well as read DNA sequences and mind patterns. With Stuart's cutting-edge research in health and spirituality, he is a powerful intuitive who uses universal law to resolve everything from health, money, relationship, and mind control issues, even reaching into other lifelines and beyond. Now, Stuart's great uncle was Yakov Swerdlow, and he was the first president of the Soviet Union. And Stuart's grandfather helped form the Communist Party in the United States in the 1930s. And to ensure that his loyalty stayed with the U.S. government, he was recruited for special government mind control experiments. I don't think he was too happy about that, and that includes 13 years at the Montauk Project, which enhanced his natural abilities. Stuart is a linguist who speaks 10 languages, and he's an expert in deprogramming and determining which Illuminati programs are embedded in the mind patterns of any individual. And his mission is to help others heal themselves in a positive way, thus avoiding the negativity that he experienced. Stuart is also an accomplished author, and his books are The Healer's Handbook, A Journey into Hyperspace, The True Reality of Sexuality, Montauk, The Alien Connection, and Blue Blood, True Blood, and try to say that one fast 20 times. I would love to see his book, True World History, in our schools today. Now, Stuart's website is www.expansions.com. And here to help us bust out of the matrix is Stewart Swerdlow. Welcome to the Cosmic Awakening Show.
Hi, Stuart.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
So we really appreciate you joining us tonight to talk about the matrix, your vision of the matrix, how you interpret it, and how we as humanity, or as a portion of humanity, are going to have an opportunity to bust out of the matrix, as we call it. And what I'd like to do tonight is to take our listeners on a brief timeline review for the first hour of the show, where we discuss the origins of humanity from Lyra to Earth, and we discuss how we became entrapped in this program that we're calling the Matrix. And then I'd like to open up the lines for any questions we may have in the second half of the show, and we'll wrap up with how we're going to bust out of the Matrix, similar to how you busted out of your mind control programming. So, to start, author Lisa Royale wrote a book called The Prism of Lyra, in which she described a Stargate by Lyra where consciousness, she says that consciousness entered this part of the universe. But could you please start with Lyra and explain how and why humanity fanned out from Lyra?
Sure. And by the way, I met Lisa a long time ago, actually, at a conference in Florida. And she's a very lovely person. And so, go back to ancient history. And the human race, the original human race, had its origins in the Lyrian star system. And they existed there for eons of time until the Draco, or the reptilian empire, attacked. And when they attacked the Lyrians, they destroyed most of the structure of that civilization. And the survivors fanned out into many, many areas of the Milky Way galaxy and colonized many, many different star systems and adapted to the different environments and atmospheric conditions in each of those environments. And that is why out in the universe, or especially in the Milky Way galaxy, there are so many different versions of humanity that exist. Now, in this solar system, there was 2 planets that were inhabitable. One we know now as Mars, which actually had an atmosphere and oceans. And right after Mars was a large world which has been known in ancient times as Maldek, and that also had an atmosphere and oceans. And so some of the Lyrian survivors colonized those 2 worlds and created civilizations there. At the time, the Earth was actually in the 2nd position from the Sun, and the Earth was a water world. The atmosphere was filled with liquid. Our planet was mostly covered in water and was not habitable on the surface. Over many eons of time, the Draco fanned out and searched for the surviving humans from Lyrae in various parts in the Milky Way galaxy. And wherever they found them, they would attack and try to assimilate. And so they did find the colonies here in this solar system on Maldek and on Mars. And what the reptilians do as weapons is they send in an ice comet, which is usually hollowed out so that it can be maneuvered. And it is driven by a very tiny manufactured black hole, which pulls the large object in front of it. And so this ice comet entered into our solar system, and as it passed the planet Uranus, it caused Uranus to be pulled off of its axis and go into a north to south spin. And those of you who know about astronomy know that Uranus is the only planet that we know of that does not spin west to east, but rather north to south, and that is because of the effect of the ice comet as it passed. Next, the ice comet went towards the larger worlds of Saturn and Jupiter, and then what happened was the geomagnetic pull of the large planets of Jupiter and of Maldek, and even the pull of Mars and even our sun, caused Maldek to explode. And that is why we have an asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter today. As the ice comet passed the planet Mars, the atmospheric pull and the geomagnetic pull literally pulled the oceans off of Mars. It created a great disturbance. It pulled a lot of the atmosphere off of Mars. And in fact, there are approximately 3 kilometers of soil or topsoil that have been pulled off of Mars from the northern hemisphere of Mars. And those of you who study the planet Mars know that there is a depression that goes around the equator of Mars, and basically the North Pole is much different than the South Pole of Mars. And the survivors of Mars went to the inside of the planet because many of these worlds are hollow inside, like the Earth is hollow inside. Next, the ice comet went into a spin around the Earth and polarized the oceans or water that was on the Earth and created the polar north and south poles that we have now. And then the Earth and the ice comet took up separate positions. The Earth was pushed into the 3rd position from the Sun, and the ice comet took up the 2nd position from the Sun. And the ice comet then, because it was so close to the light of the Sun, the ice on the surface began to evaporate and create a cloud cover. And that is why the planet Venus, which was the ice comet, has the cloud cover that we have today. Once the Earth was now, land masses appeared when the oceans were pulled and separated. So then the Draco, or the reptilians, drove a vehicle into our solar system in order to colonize this planet. And they parked this object in orbit around the planet, and we now know that object as the moon. The moon is a spaceship. It's not a natural object. In fact, the components of the moon are much older than any rocks that we have on the Earth. And in fact, scientists have determined from examining moon rocks that they're not even from the solar system. And so from the moon, the Draco colonized the largest landmass on the Earth, which we now call Lemuria, which existed in what is now the Pacific Ocean.
Stuart, can I just jump in real quick?
Hundreds of thousands of years. Now, the moon does not spin like a natural object in space. The moon only has one side that faces the Earth at all times, and that is because it is like a spaceship parked in orbit. And we also know that the moon, when you send a sonic resonance off the moon, it pings like a hollow object, not thumped like a solid object. So we know that the moon also is hollow inside. The other interesting thing about the moon is that the craters that you see, which allegedly were created by bombardment by comets and asteroids, that's really not true, because if you notice, on the craters of the moon, they're all flat and they're all smooth. And if this was created by something hitting the moon, there would be indentations and great depressions, and there are not. Also, we find that the surface of the moon is piled with debris that came from the interior of the moon. So it's as if someone or something hollowed out the interior of the moon, piled the debris on the outside, and then reorganized the inside of the moon. In fact, there's a lot of metals that are found just beneath the surface of the moon, which would indicate that it was an artificially created object built to withstand high impacts and high heat and even attacks by weapon. When we also take a telescope on a clear night on a full moon, and you look at any of the craters or mountain ranges that you see on the moon, you will see little tube-like structures. You will see lights. You will see movements. There is activity on the moon. And there are also evidence of debris from some type of warfare. You will find vehicles crashed, etc. But going back to the Earth history, the reptilians created civilization on Lemuria, and it wasn't until many, many thousands and millennia years after that the refugees from Mars and from Maldek decided to colonize the Earth as well. And they chose the second largest continent, which we now know as Atlantis. And that existed in what is now the Atlantic Ocean. And so the human colonists existed on the same world as the reptilian colonists. And of course, these two species are not supposed to exist in the same environment. They just don't belong together in the same environment. And so over time, there was a war, there was controversy, much destruction. And so after centuries of this, actually millennia of this, it was decided that some sort of a peace agenda be created. And so that is why it says in the Bible in Genesis, let us create man in our image. You will note that in the Old Testament, all references to God are plural. There is not one singular reference to God in the ancient Hebrew language. It's all plural. Even the word Adonai is a plural word. Elohim is a plural word. They're all plural. And obviously it was a group effort to create mankind by a synthesis of the reptilian species with the mammalian species.
So are the Elohim...
Now, this is evident in the way humans gestate. You observe how a fetus develops in the early stages.
Stuart,
in the first
can you hear me?
That it actually looks like an androgynous reptilian creature, and only afterwards do mammalian genetics or appearances start to manifest. And this is because the genetics are opening up in the sequence in which they were installed. During this process of creating a third species, which was a blend of reptilian and human, the idea was that the androgynous reptilian body would be used as a basis, and then mammalian genetics would be added to it in order to create this new being, which is known as mankind. And that basically is the story of Adam and Eve, you know, where it says that God made Eve out of the rib of Adam. This is a mistranslation, because the other possible translation of this is a life force. If you look at the ancient Sumerian words, and that were translated into the Aramaic and then Hebrew words, it's really life force, not a rib. And so basically the Old Testament is giving you a description of the reptilian presence on the earth. It's also telling you about the creation of mankind as a synthesis between the two species. And you look at mankind today, not only how humans gestate in the womb, but we have a reptilian brainstem. We have skin that wrinkles and peels. We have a mammalian heart with reptilian arteries. We have a reptilian lymphatic system. And so human beings on the earth today are basically a hybrid race. We are part reptilian and part mammalian. And that is really why we have such conflict within, because the genetics are in conflict with one another. The mind patterns are in conflict with one another. And that is why, according to some religions, you were born in sin, not because we did anything wrong, but because we are a race that should not really exist.
Wow.
So,
Stuart, can you hear me?
In a nutshell is the history of our galaxy and solar system and our planet in ancient times. I basically condensed billions of years into a few minutes.
Okay. Can you hear me, Stuart? Have you muted us, Stuart? Can you hear us?
Are you still on mute?
I'm not.
No, I'm talking to Stuart.
Stuart, can you hear us?
Yeah, because we can hear you, but you can't hear us.
I wonder, do you have your speakers turned down, Stuart?
I hear something on the other end.
He's typing.
Yeah.
That was a very interesting summary that he gave. Let me get him on Facebook here and see.
All right. Well, hopefully he's working on either unmuting.
Can you hear us, Stuart?
I can hear.
Hopefully he's working on either unmuting.
No, I'm not.
Now I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, that is really strange.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
No.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
What's going on?
Type in your message.
I did.
we can hear you. You just can't hear us. That's kind of bizarre.
I can't hear them now wrong.
I hear Janet in the background. Hi, Janet.
Could you hear me though, Alice?
Well, I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop him and dial him back up. Would that be good, Gregg?
Yeah, do that. Okay. So.
You give us just a second.
And a quote in the chat room from Bren, the Golden Web.
We're dropping him and we're going to bring him back on. Well, Stuart has mentioned several times in, when he's doing shows,
yes,
that there has been some technical difficulties. So,
yeah, controlled interruptions.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to add him back here, right?
Okay.
So, Stewart Swerdlow, can you hear us yet?
Hello?
Can you hear us now? Stewart, can you hear us now?
I don't think he can.
He can't. We're hearing his computer.
Yeah. We can hear you and your computer. We heard Janet talking in the background before.
I don't know if you can hear me, but I cannot hear you.
Obviously.
Yeah, that explains a lot.
What do you want to say about Stuart while he can't hear us?
Yeah, that's very strange.
Just kidding. So
well, maybe he needs to reboot.
Yeah.
Well, she's not here. I don't know who you're hearing.
Oh. So he did hear something.
Can you hear us now? Oh, I see. He's got a very strange delay.
He's got a long delay.
Stuart, I'm trying to type to you on Facebook if you get this.
Type to him through Skype.
Oh, how do you do that, honey? Through Skype. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, everyone that's listening, hang in there with us. We had a great connection with him when we first called in before the show started. We were chatting back and forth, no delay whatsoever. And like Michelle mentioned, Stuart will have these kind of experiences when he's on radio talk shows where there's just these crazy things that go on. And for all of a sudden, you sometimes lose transmission, or in this case, one of us can hear the other, but the other can't hear us.
So I don't know how to type to him through Skype. I'm concerned that I may hang up on the call. So let me just try to disconnect him one more time and bring him back on.
Okay.
He gave a great rendition of the Earth's history here. I enjoyed that.
The gremlins are messing with the connection. That's what is being said in the chat room by Ember Star Shower. Bryn thinks it's the moon.
Yeah, it could be.
Or the lack of one tonight.
Well, the president's having his speech right now at the same time, 8 o'clock Eastern. And,
Hello. Hey.
Hey, can you hear us, Stuart?
Do you have him on mute?
No.
Hang on. Let me see.
Okay, let me look and see. I don't think I do right here. So, yeah, I can hear him just fine.
My mic was on.
We can hear you, Stuart. But this is, probably typical for...
Why don't I get off? Why don't you... I'll call in. And maybe it's the connection.
Then I'm hearing.
Huh?
they're not on the air because otherwise I'd hear them.
So we're going to try a few different things because, of course.
Where's this coming from? I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, let's try that.
Microphone.
Try a few different things here with Stuart.
There's a call in. Do you want to use this?
Check your speakers up, Amber. I don't know. Is that right?
Okay, so hang with us, everybody. We're going to try to do this, to reroute this a different way. Stuart could hear us, at the beginning of the show, and then all of a sudden he talked, gave us his rendition, and then he couldn't hear us anymore. So I'm going to try this. Gregg's going to try to bring Stuart on his end. Thank goodness I have somebody helping me this show, because I wouldn't know what to do. But anyway, I was talking about the president and his what's happening tonight is he's giving a speech, and usually the Illuminati astrologists know just the perfect time to be able to do some programming, some mind control programming. And so what we're doing tonight is just found out like 10 minutes before the show that it was at the same time. We're going to reverse some of that programming and offset it. So we hope to be able to do that as we find out what Stuart thinks about busting out of the matrix. So, Gregg, are you calling in? Okay, great. Now
Hello?
I've got this. Hello.
Oh, there, we're back.
How did that happen?
I'll tell you something.
He's back, and I didn't do anything to bring him back on.
Yeah. This happens every so often when I talk about certain topics. In fact, there was one show I did in Colorado where the station the equipment blew up.
Oh, Lord. We can't have that happen here. Well, I didn't even bring you back on at all. I mean, I didn't touch... I got you off. I don't know how you magically came back on. Seriously,
I don't know.
We really enjoyed that rendition of the history, the galactic history. And Gregg has a question about the moon. Gregg, are you?
Okay.
Do I need to bring you on, Gregg? Do I need to bring you back on? I'm bringing you back on right now.
I'm in.
Cool.
I brought myself in. All right. Cool. Wow. Well, welcome back.
Well, like I say, this has happened many times before, but be glad your equipment's still intact.
I am now. Okay.
No, you're not.
So, Gregg, do you have a question that you wanted to ask about the moon?
Yeah, it was weird because when you were talking about the moon, I was trying to ask you a question and you kept going, and everyone heard me except you.
That's what Janet
I wanted to know. What I wanted to know was, in your opinion, what purpose does the moon serve, and who ultimately controls the moon?
Very good question. Well, the moon has a purpose ever since it's been brought here of transmitting ELF and mind control waves to the planet in order to program and mind control the population. And that's what's going on. Also, the moon is in a position, and I can't explain it scientifically because it's very complicated, but the moon is in a position in order to create a disturbance between the solar energy and the Earth's energy. Otherwise, we would be a lot more advanced and peaceful weather and tides than we have now. So the moon is basically set up to disturb conditions on the Earth.
So who specifically is transmitting these ELF frequencies from the moon to the planet?
Originally, it was the reptilians, and now the major government, I should say the New World Order, or the Illuminati, are the ones in control of that.
And apparently a lot of people are saying that the Saturn is tied into the moon, as if Saturn might even be basically a projector projecting onto the moon, and then from the moon projecting down to the Earth. Have you heard anything along that line?
Well, I can tell you that Saturn is being prepared to be a second sun, and all of the large moons around Saturn are going to become as if it was another solar system within our solar system. And Titan is also a very Earth-like moon, and in fact, it will be colonized in the coming decades.
Thank you for answering that. And Stuart, do you think that the moon is where this reincarnation system that we've been stuck in over and over exists?
I can't say it's because of the moon, because the so-called system of reincarnation is just part of existence. But reincarnation is really an illusion, because when you realize that there is no time and space, in actuality, that all time and space are simultaneous, then in reality, or I should say in actuality, it's an illusion of reincarnation, because we can focus in any lifetime we desire, because they're all occurring at the same moment. But I can tell you that the moon transmissions give us a mind control or a programming so that we feel that we are trapped in physical reality and cannot get out of it without an intermediary.
Well, and the reincarnation cycle trap that I was speaking of, basically, we are supposed to have incarnated onto the planet with, the purpose of enjoying or experiencing being a, third dimensional physical being. But I understand that the Greys have hijacked the system with this reincarnation cycle, this trap into the false light. When you die and you leave your body, they take you into this tunnel, and at the end of the tunnel, you may have your spirit guides or a family member that they're posing as, and they use the universal law of karma to get you to want to go back, to not talk you into going back, but to try to get you to agree that you need to go back and have another lifetime, to get your memory wiped again, and to go back in and rectify those things. But of course, with your memory wiped, you don't remember why you're here, and it seems like this has been an ongoing cycle. And I was wondering if you can concur that this has happened in the past, and if this reincarnation trap has been dissolved at this point.
Well, I actually have written about that a number of years ago. I believe it might be in my Blue Blood book, or maybe in my True World History book. But yes, they have a false light that they do trick people into entering upon passing. But I will emphasize that the ones who are the most deceived by it are the ones who are perhaps using a lot of narcotics, drug addicts, who are very severely mentally ill, those who have been sick for a very long time and are weak in their mind and consciousness. So there are those who are preyed upon more easily than those who have a stronger will and who have kept themselves in a more pristine state, if you will. Mm-hmm. So yes, they do have that, and there's a device that they use. It's electromagnetic, and I actually have experienced it, where they can tap or capture your soul personality and put you into this electromagnetic containment field, where they store many soul personalities, and then take at will and stick them into a body of their choosing or their creation for whatever purposes they have in mind. So yes, there's a lot of that. Is that before you
go into the light? Is that before you go into the light, or is that once you enter the false light?
Well, it's the false light. It's the false light. And that's why I tell people who are passing on not to go into a white light, but rather to look for silver or gold or violet, because they cannot manufacture that. The white light they can manufacture and make it an artificial version of it.
That's interesting, because that's one of the questions that I had for you. And also, you know, as we're raising our frequency here, you know, with the universal law of vibrational attainment, if we were to die tomorrow, and we had worked on clearing ourselves, healing our past life energies, and the various things that we're doing right now, getting out of fear and everything, I think that if we were to, when we were to leave our body, if we were to like die tomorrow, we probably we wouldn't even vibrate towards that false light. Where do you think we go after we die if we're of a higher vibration?
Yes, well, that's what I talk about a lot in my work, and that's why I teach hyperspace work, because under what I would call regular conditions, people would be pulled towards the lower astral. But if you raise your vibration, if you do your release work, your deprogramming work, you grow up the child within, all of these things, then you would go directly into a hyperspace level, a much higher vibrational rate. And there you would have more freedom of choice. You'd be able to see the truth, and you'd be able to connect to the absolute rather than be trapped in the lower astral. I also tell people to do their oversoul work. And the oversoul work means it's really a part of you. It's a higher version of your own self that is the interface to the absolute or the God mind. And so those of you who practice that oversoul work are raising your rates of vibration, not only on a conscious level, or I should say a soul personality level, but also resonates within the body.
Okay, that's wonderful news. Do you think that we incarnated in this lifetime in a physical body to move beyond where somebody could accomplish, rather than, you know, going out of body to get there? Or do you think that you can get there either way? You can basically get free of this matrix either way?
Well, I think there are many routes that are possible to free from the cycle and entrapment that we have here in this world. However, I agree with you that many who are incarnated onto this world right now, who are doing the work to help people realize and see what's going on, that's the mission, that chose to come here, to brave the battlefield, if you will, to show a way for those to break out of this cycle, or what you call the matrix. Mm-hmm. Because you know, unfortunately, most of humanity have blinders on. You know, they're very happy with their slavery, and not many are making an effort to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did we fall into this consciousness? I know that, you know, Atlantis was destroyed in approximately 10,500 BC.
Right.
But was there a crystal, or was there the dark priest work that caused this the fall in the planet's vibration, which in turn caused, you know, the fall in our consciousness? How did that go down?
Well, as I mentioned during my little dialogue on history, that humanity is a hybrid of the reptilian and mammalian structures. And when the human race was created by the donation of the DNA from both sides, what they did is to program their DNA to become dominant over the other DNA. So right away there was a sabotage going on. Mm-hmm. And so the reptilian mindset, which is fight or flight, which is also aggressive, materialistic, that became a dominant factor in mankind. And so that is why there's so much inner conflict between the mammalian side and the reptilian side. So basically, and I hear a lot of people out there, I see a lot of sites out there that they condemn the reptilians, they condemn all of these things. But we have to remember that we are part of them. Their DNA is in us. So we can't condemn part of ourselves. What we need to do is look at that part, recognize it, and upgrade it, assimilate it, and change the structure so that it becomes more benevolent and compatible to the mammalian side of us.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Basically, we're all tied together. We all did come from the same source.
Right.
And we will all go back to the same source. It's just a matter of what route we choose and how long it's going to take in this construct that we have of time. And the big illusion that I think we find ourselves here in the U.S. is that we're the land of the free, the home of the brave, when in fact everything is actually backwards and upside down. Mm. And it's all a giant hoax of spells and mind control. And can you explain your knowledge of what I call black magic frequency waves using sigils, and what other forms of control are they using to program the general humanity population?
Yeah, well, a couple of things that you're actually referring to there. The first thing was what I would call a sexual magic ritual, where they perform ceremonies using energy fields, symbols, colors, archetypes in order to invoke their lower astral level entities to control a body or a group of people in order to accomplish a particular function. Then we have the satellite system and the ground antennas, the Gwen towers, cell phone towers, that are all working together to bombard the Earth with microwave and ELF scalar waves to piggyback the mind, the brain waves, and then piggyback that with the mind control waves, so that people have thoughts that they think are their own, which are actually added to their thoughts. And that's why I think it's very important when I teach my work. I tell people to be analysts of their mind patterns, to analyze their dream states, the symbols in the dream state, to look at the colors that they perceive, the symbols, the images. They need to analyze this and see what the mind patterns are behind it, and then look at what programs are attached or hooked onto the foundational mind patterns that need to be removed. So basically, human beings are a slave race. They're designed to not realize they're a slave race so that they don't rebel. Their minds are controlled. The emotions are controlled. The food and liquids that they take in are altered so that they put nanoparticles and heavy metals in the body so that in effect you become like a walking antenna that can pick up the satellite transmission, the telephone transmissions. All these things we're bombarded 24/7. And we need to use protection techniques. We need to detox ourselves. There's so much work that has to be done. And sometimes it can sound a bit overwhelming, but we came here to confront this and to make the changes. And that's why we're all doing the work that we're doing.
Yes, and we'll talk about that a little bit towards the end of the show as to what we can do, more of what we can do to help, release ourselves from this particular vibration. I was wondering, back to this Atlantis question I had before about the fallen consciousness, did the Atlanteans cause a rip in time and space that allowed these lower fourth dimensional beings, more of them, to come in and act as minions to carry out the reptilian agenda?
Well, in a matter of speaking, yes, because contrary to what a lot of people think, the Atlanteans were not love, light, and peace. They had their own agenda, and they did use their own sexual magic ritual and their own... what they did was they manipulated the morphogenetic grid of the Earth, and they actually, during the war with the Lemurians, caused the Lemurian continent to sink into what became the Pacific Ocean. It basically crushed the surface of the outer mantle and caused it to sink in. So yes, the Atlanteans opened themselves up through their communications in the astral and with certain alien societies that promoted this negativity on the Earth even after Lemuria was sunk. And the Atlanteans became very warlike. They even attacked their own colonies in Greece and in ancient Egypt. And ultimately, because of the destruction or the self-destructive mind pattern that they had over a period of several millennia, they destroyed their own continent using crystal technology, using black magic, weather manipulation. They even were able to pull in comets and asteroids that crashed onto the Earth that they used as weapons, and then ultimately destroyed them.
Well, I don't understand why were they doing that? What was the point of destroying their bloodlines and warring against themselves? So what the hell's wrong with them?
Well, that's also a very good question. You've just described every major civilization on the Earth.
Yeah, that's true.
Including the United States. And people or civilizations, as they age, I don't like that word, but as they move forward in time and create a long history, they become a little bit self-centered. They become arrogant. They become manipulative. And then there are factions that develop within the society, and one faction wants to be above the other one. And look, we see this in families, we see this in corporations, we see this in countries, and that's the same thing that happened to the Atlanteans. They became so enamored of their technology, of their material things, their wealth, that they started to fight with each other. And all the spiritual ideas eventually disappeared, and they became no better than the reptilians.
So if I understand this correctly, basically we are them, and in order to quote defeat them, we have to do that work within ourselves. We're basically everything is basically projecting within ourselves in our bloodline, whether it be from our we are the people that before us, our great-grandparents or whatever, or whether it be etherically, basically in order to change everything, we have to face these fears and these things within ourselves.
That's very correct. I always use the analogy, and some of your audience may have heard it before. I say that thoughts are like film, the brain is the projector, and physical reality is the screen. So when we are watching this movie around us, and we want to change it, we have to change the mind pattern. Keep going. This is the film. We cannot change the screen. The screen is the end result. We have to change what's within us, what we are projecting out.
Right. That's what I meant, projecting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So who is at the top of this Archon chain? Basically, who controls the Illuminati? I mean, aren't there beings that are on top of, like, the reptilians, the Dracos? Aren't there some that are aren't there some artificial intelligence beings as well that are higher on the hierarchy chain?
Yes, it gets actually quite complicated. On this world, of course, we know the Illuminati, and the head of the Illuminati is the Pindar, and the Pindar reports to the reptilian hierarchy, and the reptilian hierarchy reports to their lords and masters, some of which are artificial intelligence, and some actually go beyond our physical universe, goes interdimensionally into non-physical existences. Mm-hmm. And in fact, many years ago, when government was exploring what is the UFO mystery about and who was behind it, some of the information that they received back in the 60s stated that there was a network of 17,000 worlds that spanned several galaxies and dimensions that were being controlled by non-physical entities, and which desired to incorporate this world into their network. And in order to do so, they had to create a slave race or mind control program people. And they've done quite well in accomplishing that. So yes, to answer your question, there's a huge hierarchy that goes above the Illuminati, above the reptilians, into non-physical realities.
Would that be the Archons that you're talking about?
Well, it's an interesting term that you mentioned, Archons. I did several months ago an entire seminar about this because I think it's a misunderstood term. Since ancient times, Archons have been considered to be the reptilians or the lords of the reptilians who control this world and beyond. But I must say what I've come to learn. This section of the Milky Way galaxy, eons ago, before the reptilians ever came here, this section of the galaxy collided with another galaxy that was in the process of deteriorating or falling apart. And so that part of the old or galaxy that collided with this one is incorporated into this part of the Milky Way. And one world that was actually having a difficult time surviving during the collision. And when I say collision, when galaxies collide, it's not like a car accident where they crash and there's explosions. When galaxies collide, they kind of blend into one another, and the more powerful energy galaxy absorbs the weaker one, which is what happened in this case. But there was one world from that other galaxy that contained beings that were, they were scorpion beings. They looked like big, gigantic scorpions, and they were very aquatic. And because this was a water world, they found refuge here. And only recently, in Africa and other places, they've uncovered huge 2-meter-size fossils of the scorpion-like creatures that lived in the water. But these were intelligent creatures, and they lived here for eons of time before the Draco arrived. When the Draco arrived, these scorpion beings went to the inner earth and remained there. So, in effect, in my opinion, and from what I've learned from, my connection to the intelligence agencies, those were the original Archons, and that was the scorpion-type beings. And the reptilians kind of took over that role after they arrived. So what people refer to now as the Archons and being the reptilians, they were really the usurpers of that terminology after the original had gone into the inner earth.
Speaking of the inner earth, the hollow earth is actually a really hot topic. Could you please describe your interpretation of what in the inside of the planet is like, and who else is existing in there?
Okay, I'd like to give a little lesson on how that even happens, because when molten material is ejected from a star like our sun, and the molten material is then thrown into the cold depths of space, that molten material starts to spin from the speed of force of ejection. And as it spins, the outer surface starts to cool and harden, and that puts pressure on the inner molten material. Now, the centrifugal force of the spin creates an opening in the inside of this molten material on this newly formed sphere, and that spin then ejects, because of the motion and the pressure, ejects the excess material through openings that become the North and South Pole. That then allows the interior portion to cool and creates a hardened surface on the inside of the world. So then what we have is an outer hard mantle and an inner hard mantle with molten material trapped in between. And the friction between the inner and outer mantles over this hot magma creates or breaks up the mass of the mantle into tectonic plates, which is why we have that on both the inner and outer surfaces of the planet. Now, inside the planet, again, there is a residual molten material that's suspended through gravitational field, which becomes like an inner sun. And this inner sun warms the inside of the world, of this planet, and creates what we would call the inner Earth. And there are openings at the North Pole and the South Pole that can be accessed into the inner Earth. And there are also tunnel systems that go from the inner Earth mantle to the outer Earth mantle through the magma fields in between, so that there are actually openings to the inner Earth on the surface of the planet as well. To answer your question, we need to look at not only inner Earth, but the subterranean part of the outer mantle. Mm-hmm. Because there are caverns and tunnel systems that exist where many reptilian beings and other type of beings live just below the surface. But in the inner Earth, the inner open area, there are many, many different types of civilization. We will find in there what I just mentioned, the archonic scorpion-type beings. There will be tall blondes who have been here for eons of time. You will find Fourth Reich Nazis that exist towards the southern polar opening. There are many, many different types of beings that exist in the inner Earth. It's just as vast as the surface of the outer Earth. So you can imagine the space that's available for the different civilizations there.
Well, and also, I was just wondering, are there wars going on inside the Earth between all of those different races as well?
Yes, there are some. I would say it's not as confrontational as the surface, but definitely there are issues that have gone on in the inner Earth and in the space between the caverns between the inner Earth and the outer mantle. Many of the so-called mine explosions or people missing in mine shafts or the miners that disappear, these are the result of skirmishes that occur between the inner and outer mantle beings.
So what agenda do these inner Earth beings have?
Well, again, it depends which civilization you want to look at. To me, right now, the biggest issue is the Fourth Reich, which exists in New Schwabenland underneath what is Antarctica. And they are waiting for the problems to arise with the Illuminati so that they can come up and take over from them. The Fourth Reich is in league with a group in the Kuiper Belt, which exists in the very outer portions of our solar system. There is a huge fleet amassing there of many, many different civilizations, both from physical universe and non-physical. And the Fourth Reich is aligned with them. And so what I know is the Illuminati are preparing a staged alien invasion, which I think will occur very soon. After that occurs, there will be a real alien invasion from the Kuiper Belt, and that's when the Fourth Reich and other inner Earth beings will come to the surface. So it's going to be quite a complicated mess. Well,
what do you suggest that we do about this? You know, how are we going to exist? I really hoped that before we had any kind of false alien invasion, that we could move our consciousness out of this old matrix and allow, everybody else to go through it, but that we would not have to go through that. How do you suggest that we discern against what's happening with the aliens?
Well,
invasion.
That's what my work is about, to do the release work, change the mind pattern, connect to the oversoul, do your deprogramming, grow up the child within, do your ultimate protection work. All of these things help to change the course of a particular soul personality. But remember that it is also our obligation to show others to do it. Now, whether they accept or reject is up to them. But we have to at least show others the way out.
Now, a lot of people are talking about raising their vibration, and there's a Russian website. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it actually gives the daily Schumann resonance reading, and I've seen it lately as high as 8.90. Now, a lot of people are familiar with the Schumann resonance, which is basically the heartbeat of the planet, and it typically stays around 7.83. But like I said, it's gone as high as 8.9 in recent days. So I was wondering, do you have any knowledge about the Schumann resonance, and what would be your interpretation of Mother Earth basically rising in vibration and giving us the opportunity to rise with her?
Yes, and I know about that information. First of all, the rise in the vibrational rate is a result of the lack of solar activity. We have to realize that the natural state of the Earth is an ice age. The Earth has been an ice age more than not, and that is its natural condition. So when the Earth is in its natural condition, the vibrational rate increases, and the potential for any of the occupants on the Earth also increases. However, we also have the factor, again, of the scalar waves, the mind-controlled microwave, which try to circumvent the ability of those to tap into the higher vibrational rates. So it's kind of a battle between what's going on naturally and what's going on artificially. And we need to use our mind patterns. We need to use our connection to the higher energies, the oversoul, the God mind, the absolute, in order to show us the path and the way to stay clear of all of this. But I also wanted to say, as far as the Earth is concerned, and what the Earth, what you mentioned, what the Earth is giving as an opportunity, the planet is actually a reflection of those that live upon it, so that what we project out individually and collectively, the Earth will reflect that back. So, for example, if there's an area, a region of the Earth with very stormy mind patterns, with very erratic thoughts, they're going to create hurricanes and tornadoes and storms. If there's a group of people who are emotionally overwhelmed in life and don't know what to do, they will create floods and tsunamis. And if there are groups of people who need a shakeup in their life, they will create earthquakes. And on and on and on. So the Earth will reflect based on the collective of the beings upon it.
Now, do you think that the Earth's consciousness volunteered to serve as a place for us to finally, once and for all, balance this part of ourselves that began, with the reptilians and with the war on Lyra and everybody scattered out and began the conquer process? Do you feel that the Earth changed? Like, I thought originally that she was created for, a nice little vacation planet, and she has really turned into more of, this is where whatever happens here affects the rest of the cosmos.
Well, again, yes, the planet does have a consciousness. All planets have a consciousness. Everything has consciousness. And it's all connected to the God mind and the absolute. So it's really not exactly the planet itself, but the absolute, the totality of all that provides the experience for the species that live upon it. And again, I emphasize it's the species mind pattern that projects out and creates the conditions. We cannot, even with the Illuminati, we can't blame them. Because they're only providing a role that we are giving them, because we have victimization mentality, and that needs to be altered. The Earth, the Earth will cleanse itself. The Earth is cleansing itself, and it's like when you wake up and you feel like there's a mosquito on you, you brush it off and you smack it off, and that's what the Earth is doing to mankind. It's like, okay, you abused me, I'm going to start shaking and rocking and rolling here. Now, of course, the Illuminati have satellites and that are bombarding the North and South Pole with extreme ELF activity, which is agitating the tectonic plates and causing more volcanic activities and earthquake activities, etc. And they're doing this because they're trying to recreate or actually follow the script in the book of Revelation for end time that the Illuminati wrote, actually, in 300 AD. And they are trying to fulfill that now technologically so that people will be scared into thinking it's end times and will accept, the staged second coming of Christ and New World religion and all these things that are being planned. So I shouldn't say my feeling, but I know that ultimately the Illuminati will not be successful because what they don't count on is that human beings, when they are finally pushed against the wall with nowhere to go, they're going to push back, whether they're mind-controlled or not. Because no matter how programmed you may be, you cannot program the God mind within. That's impossible. And it will always be victorious.
It seems like, if we don't do anything, we're basically acquiescing to everything that they say. And you're right. At some point, whether it's through activism or whatever, you have to fight back, and you have to do something. I mean, just love and light sometimes is not enough.
No. People say, well, can't we just love them and they'll go away? Well, that's in La world, you can do that. But there's all different kinds of love. I can love you unconditionally, or I could love you to death. Love is an energy. It's what you do with it. It can hurt you or it can help you. And that's what people have to realize. It's an energy we have to direct. We can't just let it happen. We have to direct it with our mind patterns.
Stuart,
now, what about the possibility of, metaphysically speaking, of DNA upgrades? Is there anything that you can say along those lines? Is our DNA evolving, and will that happen soon enough?
DNA is a result of the mind pattern, and I have a flow chart that says it starts with the thoughts, the mind pattern. As that enters into physical reality, it attracts atomic structure, which forms into the protein bases, which become the DNA and the blueprint of the body. So in effect, the DNA in the body is a result of the mind pattern. So the only way you're going to upgrade DNA or change it to any capacity is by changing the way you think. Because you can't change the DNA without changing your thought patterns. It won't work.
That's very interesting. Well, you've said that the DNA can hold more information than, any artificial chips that can be made.
Right.
Do we have our Akashic records stored in our DNA? And if so, how do we learn to access our Akashic records to really learn the truth?
Well, that's basically what that 97% of what science calls junk DNA is about. And they call it junk DNA because they don't know what it is or how to use it. So instead of embarrassing themselves, they call it junk. But when you do DNA opening exercises, and I do teach that, you will be able to access all of that information. And isn't it interesting that all species, whether you're an amoeba, a human being, an alien, an elephant, whatever you are, 97% of the DNA is identical. So that is proof of a common source of all of creation. And it's only that 3% of differential that creates entire species and individuals within a species. So really, the 3% that the scientists have mapped as a genome of humanity is minute compared to the totality of your genetic capacity.
Well, and can you explain, though, how some people in the same household can awaken to the fact that there's something really wrong, with this planet and with their, the way they've been living their life, and they come to their grand awakening and go through their dark night of the soul. But how is it that they do that and some other people don't?
That is a matter of experience of the individual and also the depths of the programming of the individual. And yes, I see that all the time where there's one person in a group that realizes what's going on, and the rest are just, content to watch TV and eat, McDonald's hamburgers.
It's funny how some people you could. And it's funny how some people you can show them all the statistics in the world of how we're getting screwed over, and they're still asleep, and there's nothing you can do or say right now to awaken them.
Well, but you know why? I look at that too, and it's so much easier to believe what CNN is telling you than to think, there's something more than that. Because once you realize that there's something more, you have to do something about it. And people are lazy, and they don't want to do anything about it, so they condemn. It's interesting, like today alone, where you live in Florida, well, not far, you heard about that shooting at Florida State University. At the library there. Did you hear about that?
No, we don't keep up with things like that.
Okay, someone has a gun, you got to find out about that, Michelle, all right? Especially in your state. But what was interesting is when the police shot and killed the shooter, and they described him as a mentally ill conspiracy theorist. So, and I see this happening all the time. When there's a shooting or a rape or whatever is going on, the perpetrator is always some mad conspiracy theorist who's so dangerous to the world. Because the Illuminati are trying to discredit people who are giving alternate information that goes against the conventional sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like when George Bush was saying, let us not tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
Right, exactly. And so, you have to be very careful about what you say in public, and that's why I tell people, know your audience, know who you're speaking to. You're not going to walk into a Catholic Church and talk about, that Jesus was, made up in the 300 AD. You're not going to do that. You need to really know who you're speaking to. And, look, if a person believes in an alien, they don't ever have to see one. They know that they exist. And if you don't believe and you don't want to believe, I can show you one in person and you won't accept it. Mm-hmm. See? So it's just up to the individual to accept or reject.
Mm-hmm. Now, I assume that a lot of our listeners have already heard about you and know about your background. That's why we decided to spend the majority of our time just jumping right into questions. I've heard that you say that the liberation of an individual would mean the use of more than the 10% of their brain, which is what the average person uses on the planet. And I was wondering, though, about yourself. How much of your brain would you say is active?
Well, according to Janet, it's about 2%.
Seriously, of all the work that you've done,
I couldn't.
Have you learned to? I mean, I know that you've accessed many more parts of your brain, but I mean, really, would it be 50%? Would it be 80%?
Oh gosh, I know it's more than the 10%. I couldn't even begin to give you a percentage on that, and I don't want to be, arrogant to give a number. But let's just say it's more than the average person.
Mm-hmm, because I know that you talked about your 13 years in Montauk on many other shows, and they were able to actually, did you, and you were able to use your brain to access other dimensions and other vibrational frequencies and such. And I know that that's really what we're moving towards as we do our work that you've talked about. So I was just wondering, would you, if you don't want to really put a number on that, would you say that you were born with more strands of DNA active than most humans on the planet?
Well, I need to qualify or explain that question. I know it's different than what you may believe or have learned. Mm-hmm. But there's really only 2 strands of DNA, no matter what you are. It's a question of how many sequences within the DNA that are opened.
Okay.
So yes, I was basically manufactured and implanted in the womb, and that I was told. I was told that by government. So yes, I came into this world a little bit different than most people. I have physical structures in my body that are different anatomically. And so I am different type of person.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also told that my cranium is larger than the average human being. My brain is larger. So I think that gave me a greater capacity for understanding and for using the energies. And plus, at Montauk Project, of course, they forced opening of Kundalini. It wasn't natural. It was a forced opening, which actually very dangerous and debilitating at times. And that kind of thrusts you in to other realities, physical and non-physical. And it's like, you're going to sink or swim. You need to do something. Otherwise, you're finished. Mm-hmm. And so that's what our training there was about, is how to get into these places, what to do when you're in there, how to find out the information, relay it back, that kind of thing. And that's where I developed the archetype dictionary that I have in my Healer's Handbook, because this is what you find in hyperspace. You find the color, the tone, the archetype, and if you learn how to put them together in the proper sequences, like a formula, then you can get the result that you desire. So that's part of what expanding the brain capacities are. But also remember, the brain is just an instrument. It's not really where your consciousness is.
Right.
Your mind uses the brain. So your mind is much more vast than the capacity of the brain.
So you were manufactured. Were you manufactured in order to serve them, and then you broke free of that programming, or who would your ET family actually be?
Well, I don't know if any of you have read the Montauk Alien Connection book, but in that book I describe an experience I had where I was taken to a platform that was orbiting the Earth, and there was a large group of various different alien beings there, and they told me that I had DNA sequences from each one of them. But I also know that I was manipulated genetically to be and created by the forces on the Earth plane as well. And there were many factions that contributed to my existence. And so, and quite honestly, over the years, I've been contacted and pulled in many different directions by each of them. So that's where I really had to say, hey, you know what? I'm my own person, and I have my own mind connected to my own, to the God mind and absolute, and that's what I'm going to follow. And then, of course, you get punished for that. And I've suffered a lot over the years because of that choice. But I don't regret it, and I'm glad that I did my best to break away from all of them and do my deprogramming and show others how to do that.
Well, where would you go first when basically the prison gates open?
You mean when the Illuminati are gone from here?
Well, I don't know if it's that the Illuminati are going to be gone, or if we, as a collective, are able to, the ones of us who make the choice, actually vibrate out of this frequency, like ghosts are out of our frequency. We're ghosts to them. That's kind of how I see it. And if you see it a different way, explain to me, what it is that we're actually trying to accomplish by busting out of the Matrix. Are they going to be leaving?
Well, what we're trying to accomplish, or I say what we will eventually accomplish, is to go back to our source of origin, to go back to that original totality of consciousness that is all things, where there really is no broken up or fragmented personality or compartmentalization, where everything is all one, and we can experience anything we wish at any moment. And ultimately, for human beings, and I hope maybe one day for myself, I would like to raise my rate of vibration to such a degree that my physical body can then become energy, and I can just travel energetically anywhere in creation at will and learn from wherever I want to go, so that you don't really have to die physically. You simply convert all to the energy and take it with you.
That's exactly what, and we can create any kind of body that we would like. But where would the first place that you would go? Have you already planned that out?
It's probably a vodka bar with sushi and someplace peaceful. I really need a peaceful place for a bit of time.
It would be nice. Yes. Yeah. Do you think that when one person makes that, when one person does that creates their light body, do you think that'll trigger the opportunity for other people to do that, or do you think we do it together?
Once a member of a species accomplishes something, that's embedded in the species mind pattern. So others can tap into that if they so desire. So yes, I think and I know that there are humans who have accomplished this in the eons of time, and so we can tap into that and we can do it ourselves.
Now, do you think that there's some kind of veil that is going to be lifted or taken away that's going to allow us to remember how to move forward? Is there going to be some kind of shift all of a sudden where we are able to remember who we are and our connection to Source and who we've been and integrate all those past and future lives? And, I mean, are we going to get some extra help here? Because, I'm trying as hard as I can now, but it doesn't seem like I'm getting somewhere. But if I just need some more tools in my toolbox.
Yeah, I understand. And, sometimes when you try too hard, it kind of backfires as well. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you just have to let it go, like that song from Frozen says, let it go. And just know, in fact, not have I always say like this, it's not faith or belief, because faith is of the heart, belief is of the mind, but knowing is of the spirit. So if we have a knowing, there's no doubt, no confusion, it just is so, then we accomplish what you just mentioned, and there is no problem at achieving that, no blockages. So it's a knowing that this is done, and tapping in to the part of you that's accomplished this already, and you exist in many, many realities. And so if you merge with the reality where you already have accomplished this, it will help you here as well. Okay.
Well, and I've heard you say that fear is the trigger that allows the Illuminati or the Archons or the ankle biters or them to attack you with the mind control programming. And so would you say that basically getting out of fear by going within and realizing who you are, reestablishing that strong connection with Source and with your, what I call your higher self, which would be maybe a higher aspect of you that's already at a higher vibration, and bringing more of that soul essence into your body at this time. Would you say that that's kind of like the first step that's going to break the chains?
Yeah, that's what we call oversoul work, and that's what we teach also in our classes. So by tapping into that liaison to the absolute, which is part of us, it's who we are. We raise the vibration. We have instant knowledge. We know what to do. If people practice that every single day and send up into the oversoul, or every person, place, or thing that disturbs you, just send it out of your heart chakra, out of your pineal chakra, right up into the oversoul. You would relieve yourself of a lot of dense energy, and you would be a much stronger vibration.
But is there a certain trigger or a certain time that, I thought, a lot of people thought it was December 21st of 2012, and we know that was manufactured to bring a different, a different outcome of fear and a whole bunch of earth changes and everything. But isn't there a certain time, like the end of the cycles and everything, that's creating the space for us to do our work and to do this? Or could this just take, another lifetime or two?
It depends on the individual, because there are some people who are not going to break out of this very soon, and there are others who are just about broken out of it. We can't look at it en masse. We have to look at it on an individual basis. Right now, any one of us can attain, what we wish at this moment. It's simply a question of the desire and the mind pattern.
Well, I guess I'm asking, are we receiving help, vibrations from the center of the cosmos, from our source, from our future selves, or what kind of, are we receiving any kind of help that's pushing those of us who have awakened and who are doing the work? But, we seem to be waiting for a certain time that we receive the remembrance and the tools that we need.
I know that a lot of people have said things like this and talked about coming back from the future, talked about resonance from the center of the galaxy, all these things. Yes, I've heard this so many times. But the bottom line of all of it is, it's up to the individual. There's no, the source is always there. It's always saying, hey, come back to me. It's always there. There is no special time. It's right now. It's this moment. That's the time. It's not any year, any month, any day. It's at this very moment. And it's up to each one of us to say, yes, I'm ready and I'm doing it now.
Well, speaking about time, how is time travel being used for and against us today?
Well, time travel is about matching a specific frequency or vibrational rate in space and time illusion, and matching that to a person or object you want to send there. And since no vibration can exist in more than one spot at a time, when you match a vibration to any point in space and time, there's an instant connection. That's how both space travel and time travel are accomplished. However, at Montauk, we learned that you cannot change a timeline. You cannot go back in a timeline and alter events, because those events have occurred in other timelines. In the God mind, every possibility occurs, and there are infinite timelines. So it's not that you change the past, it's that you go to an alternate timeline where that event did occur. And that's what they learned. You can't change the past, and you can only work on the present moment. And depending on your choices that you make at this moment, will lead into very possible, infinite possibilities of future.
Thank you for explaining that, Stuart. I have a question from the chat room, and I've never heard of this before, so maybe you have. Glitterfuzz was wondering what the 9 are. Do you know the 9?
Oh, yes. I've written about them, and I must tell your listener there are 2 versions. There is an original version of the 9, which are beings who, through eons of time, have advanced to such a point where they left their physical bodies and put their consciousnesses into supercomputers, for lack of a better term. And they exist in a particular pocket of time and space where they monitor things that are going on in the universes. Now, the government has created a programming version of the 9, which allows some individuals to think they're in contact with the 9, when in fact they're in contact with the Illuminati. So we have to be very careful about which we are actually connected to. And I would also teach, and I do teach in my private groups, that the real Council of the 9 are called the Ohalu Council. And that's been verified, actually, physically in the Middle East. And those of you who are interested in learning about that should come to my January class.
Where is that going to be?
Right here in Lake Effect, Michigan.
I don't think I have a coat big enough, but I can go buy one.
Yeah, we have heat.
I know you do. Well, that does bring up a question that I had about channeling, and I wondered if there's actually, a real Archangel Michael, and then, the false light that takes advantage of that, or archangels in general takes advantage of that and comes across as the false light. And if there are real, when I say real, benevolent beings that have the other false light have been posing as them, if there's actually the real thing, or pretty much are all archangels and angels and all that, are they just part of that, the false light, the dark?
Very good question. And the answer is that, there is, or there are angelic frequencies and hierarchies, but they're part of your composition of your soul personality and your connection to Oversoul. It's just part of you. It's just different versions of you. In the Bible, when they refer to archangels or even any of the angels, these are actually names of reptilian beings who were in control of various functions for humanity. In the real angelic frequencies, there's no names. You can't give an angel a name because it associates with such things. So when you see names of angels or entities, these are a lower level, and these are reference to what I would consider astral entities.
When I think of archangels, I think of Archon, Elohims.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
the word Elohim.
Play on the words.
Yes. And in Hebrew, the word Elohim means they who descended from above. Mm-hmm. It's not a title. It's not a holy name. It's a description of something. Mm-hmm. And that's what people don't understand. If you really learn Hebrew and you learn how to read Hebrew and understand it, then you realize a lot of these New Age terminologies are not correct.
Exactly. It's all part of deception and to keep you confused.
Right.
I mean, we're in the duality here, and so there's got to be, good guy and a bad guy. And really what you're saying, Stuart, is that it's all us. We're all part of this one energy or one source being, and we sent forth aspects of ourselves to go experience so that the creator being that we are would know itself. And so how would you know that you're a good guy unless you've been a bad guy, and back and forth? And now you've split into so many aspects that it's time to reintegrate all those aspects by healing and bringing everything back together again.
Correct.
So
that's correct.
Okay.
Absolutely correct. That's a perfect description.
Okay. Well, we have one caller that's been on the line for quite a while, and I would like to bring that caller in if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, great. Area code 306, thank you for joining the Cosmic Awakening Show. What is your name?
Hi, it's Wanda from Saskatchewan,
Wanda.
Canada.
Ooh.
Real interesting show tonight. Very interesting connections. Very interesting connections, too. When I tried to cue you guys and pushed one, then you guys got your connections back with him.
Oh, wow. That is
thank
interesting. Thank you, Wanda.
Isn't that weird?
I talked to you tonight. So do you have a question for Stuart?
Yeah. How do you know that the Earth is in the middle, like he says? Is there scientific proof of that, or
that the Earth is in the middle of what?
No, the Earth is solid in the middle.
Oh.
I don't believe he said it was solid.
No, it's open. It's hollow.
Yeah, the Earth is hollow. And you're not going to find any scientific proof of that because science is used against us to try to confuse us and bring about the opposite of the truth most of the time. Mm-hmm. Stuart, do you have anything to add to that?
No, you said it right there. Science is always conventional science is always going to go along the conventional path of what's in the history books and the science books, and they're not going to deviate from that. But the only proof you're going to get is when all of this is finally brushed away and we actually can go into the inner Earth and see it for ourselves.
Cool.
But I would suggest looking at the images taken from the space station and from the moon landing. and look at the Earth, and you will see it's not really round. It's kind of flattened on the top and the bottom, because that's where the openings are to the inner Earth are located, and you can actually see that from the space pictures.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
the
by the
NASA
way,
space shakers.
Yeah, and you know, Wanda, I have very good friends in Moose Jaw.
Oh, do you? Moose Jaw is a really nice place. I like it, Moose Jaw.
Yeah, you know, but I like Regina even better.
Oh, you haven't gone to the spa in Moose Jaw then, have you?
Oh, well, I just drove through Moose Jaw, though.
Oh, they have the mineral spa there, and they're known for the El Capone tunnels.
Yeah, you know, my friends were telling me
Jaw.
that. Yeah, but you know, Al Capone was here in St. Joseph, Michigan as well. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, yeah. He went back and forth between Canada and U.S. all the time, making things and the business work.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, thank you so much.
Moose Jaw. Saskatoon and other cities also have tunnels.
Oh, great. Interesting.
Wow. I'm glad you got your firewood cut, Wanda. I bet it's really cold there. Thank you so much for calling in tonight, dear.
Yeah, it's not too bad yet. It's nice. Glad I'm not in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Really? All right. Well, you have a good rest of your evening.
Bye, Wanda.
Yeah, you too. Keep up the good work there, Michelle.
Oh,
and Gregg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Stuart, in January 2012, according to a whistleblower who was an outside consultant for NASA, they were tracking 3 massive L-shaped crafts heading toward Earth. But by January of 2013, they tracked these massive UFOs to about 200,000 miles past the planet Mars, which is when they instantaneously disappeared. About 6 months later, the objects reappeared and repositioned themselves behind the moon. Do you know anything about this, and is there more to the story than what we've been told?
Yes, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the Kuiper Belt. This amassing of huge ships is surrounding our solar system. In fact, you may remember the NASA sun cams that show these huge objects coming out of the sun, and then they go towards the Kuiper Belt, and that's basically what these things are. And they are, and that's why the NASA bombed the moon, and that's why they have this Mars rover and all these things out there, because they're trying to see what the heck's going on, and they're also trying to divert attention from the public to what's going on. So, yeah, these large craft out there, there's many of them, and they're just about beyond Pluto into the Kuiper Belt and even into the Oort Belt, which is past the Kuiper Belt.
So it makes you think that there's something that's going to be going on imminently.
Well, like I say, I think there's going to be first the staged alien invasion, and then there'll be a real one after that. Yeah, soon, very soon.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Well, we're going to go a little bit towards Russia here, and I have a question. I was wondering about the holes that they've found in the Earth as the snow has melted up there in Siberia. Do you have any information as to what those are caused from, or do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they called them sinkholes, and then they said that they looked like they exploded from the inside out. And they were on the northern peninsulas in the northern part of Russia and Siberia. And in fact, there was just another one I saw today that was revealed. These are parts of old tunnel systems that have existed for hundreds of thousands of years in that part of the world, because in addition to Lemuria and Atlantis, simultaneously existed at the northern part of the world Hyperborea, which even the Greeks used to talk about. And the Russians believe that they are actually descendant of the Hyperboreans. And so what they are uncovering now are supposedly the entrances to very vast inner Earth cities that are connected to Hyperborea.
Well, is there like a barrier where when they go, I think they're taking like helicopters down there or drones down there. I mean, of course, they're not going to tell us what they're really seeing. But is there a barrier, or can you just go on down in there?
There is, well, let's say a blockade. Yes, there is like that, which prevents. And in fact, in the Arctic Sea, there's also a blockade where the submarines are prevented from going any further than a certain point. And in fact, you may recall a few years ago, there was a Russian nuclear submarine that did try to go a little bit further than it should, and it was destroyed. There was a fire on board, and everybody was dead. And that was towed back to the ship area called Murmansk in the northern part of Russia, and all the bodies were removed from the submarine, and no further word was ever given about what happened.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that information to our listeners, because I know that, they're trying to put out information right now as to what they, false information as to what those goals are. Yeah.
Right.
So, Stuart, your family has ties to the KGB, and your great uncle was the first president of the Soviet Union. So I feel like I can ask you this question, and I wanted to clear something up for a lot of people that are listening tonight that are reading things in the media about Vladimir Putin, that, he's giving this air of, being on on our good side. Could you give us a lowdown on Putin playing the role of this good guy, but what is really his agenda? I mean, he is part of the Illuminati ultimately. Is that correct?
Yes. Since the fall, or the alleged fall of the Soviet Union, the Romanov family came back, and on the Russian flag now you will see the Romanov family symbol, a two-headed, like a lionized eagle on the flag, which they hadn't had before, which shows that the Romanovs are back. Putin is, of course, working for them. And the Romanov family has always been ostracized by the other Illuminati families, and they're trying to actually create their own version of the Illuminati using the Eastern European and Asian population. Actually, the Russian people, most of them support Putin. He has made a lot of changes in Russia that have helped a lot of people. Of course, there's a lot more to do. And the rest of the Illuminati groups who are trying to then remove the Romanovs again, they are discrediting Putin, accusing him of shooting down the MH17 flight, accusing him of fomenting the revolution in eastern Ukraine, all these things. But the bottom line is, yes, Soviet Union is coming back. In fact, it kind of is back already. And it's giving its finger, the middle finger, to the rest of the Illuminati. So we're going to see a lot of interesting factions develop over the next couple of months.
Thank you. Gregg, did you want to take a question from the chat room?
Yeah, we have a question from JP, and he's from Wolf Spirit Radio. And he wants to know, is there any more information about the mantids? Are there several races of them?
Yes, I know JP very well in Scotland. And yes, there are many versions of the mantids. In my books, I talk about the very tall, insect-looking mantids, but there are others who have described more humanoid-looking mantids. And there's all kinds of versions in between. So they seem to be, they seem to have their own little agenda. I feel that they are also part of the Kuiper Belt ensemble, and they seem to be making a lot of communication with certain individuals on this planet, particularly in the UK. And I think we're going to be seeing and hearing a lot more about them in the near future.
Interesting. Now, we've all heard about negative ETs. Which ETs are currently working for the betterment of humanity, and how are they allowed to do so without violating the laws of interference?
Well, I've spoken about that for decades, and my perception and what I know from working in Montauk and from intelligence agencies, I can tell you there are no benevolent beings working on this planet, and that's because they don't interfere, and they know that humanity has to find its own way, and when it does, they will be there to be friends. But they are not. There's no benevolent interference. I mean, it's an oxymoron. If they're benevolent, they're not going to interfere. They're not going to change anything because it's up to humankind to make the changes and the choices. Unfortunately, all of the alien beings that are here have their own agenda. They do not have the best interest of mankind. And in fact, I did an entire seminar on this last month in October, which I think you can get online if you go to my website, expansions.com. So yes, there's many alien beings out there, more than you can ever imagine. But the benevolent ones, no, they are not doing anything here at the moment.
Now, you said in a previous interview, you stated that there are ETs who are trying to liberate us. Can you tell us specifically which ETs they are and what they're doing?
Well, again, there's a difference between an ET and an alien, legally. According to U.S. description, an alien is a physical being from another physical world in our physical universe. An ET can be a borderline physical or non-physical and not necessarily from this universe. So we have all of that going on here at the same time. There are races out there who have an interest, let's say, in the Earth, and that's basically what's going on in the Kuiper Belt. And it's not that they intend to liberate us so that we can be love, light, and peace. They intend to liberate or remove the Illuminati force so that they are not a threat to them. Because this planet is considered the Iraq of the galaxy, and there are those beings out there who consider this a threat, that this planet is a threat. And so they want to make changes here, but not because they love us, but because they're trying to save themselves.
Well, and I just wonder, the benevolent beings, they're not here. You said that they're not here on the planet, but I've always felt like that I actually incarnated to come in, to get in the back door from the inside and make a difference as one of those benevolent races. So does that mean that if I have that feeling, am I from like another galaxy maybe?
Well, you have to remember, all of us are not from here. Human race is made up of alien genetics. So no one is actually originally from here. Our soul personalities all come from the same place anyway. But yes, there are those who have incarnated at this point because of what's happening on this planet and because they know they can help to make a change both during the turbulent times and in the aftermath. So yes, there are those who have come here for that purpose.
Now we have another question from the chat room. Actually, they're coming up with some great questions here. I don't think I can get to all of them, but we have George 03820. His question is there much gold left on this planet, or has it been largely removed?
Oh, very good question. Yes, there is some gold on this planet, but a lot of it has been removed. In fact, a lot of the precious metals have been removed from this planet.
And where are they being removed to?
Many places. Not just in this solar system, but in other galaxies.
What would be the purpose of taking Earth from gold to another galaxy?
There are minerals that are very rare in this part of the this sector of the galaxy, and the Earth. One of the reasons the Earth is so interesting to others is because of the diversity that's here, which doesn't exist elsewhere, especially in resources and genetics and civilization types. And so, they come and they take it because they bring it back to where they come from to diversify their own worlds.
Okay. Well, I was wondering about Mars. Is there really a colonization of Mars on the inside of the planet? And if so, does the government have people that they've moved there through a jump room? And if so, are they putting people there in Mars for their version of the future of the human race?
Well, yes to the first two questions. There is an inner part of Mars that's existed for eons of time. Yes, the government, especially U.S. government, does have bases there, colonies there, mostly of military personnel. What's the purpose of it? Not to save mankind, but the Illuminati have a plan to create a new galactic empire with the Earth as its headquarters, and then fan out into other parts of the galaxy and even into other universes. And so Mars is just one of the stops along the way. Plus, there's a lot of technology that exists on Mars from other civilizations. And there's also a lot of alien bases and interactions there. So Mars is kind of like a meeting place also for various different civilizations.
Well, I was really under the impression that this was going to be ending the cycle of the dark, and I understand now that the dark is really an archetype of our own selves, so that won't end until we clear the dark from ourselves. But it seems like that the government are just minions that basically some of them don't even have a soul. So how are we going to exist in this solar system or this galaxy or even this universe if they're always out to divide and conquer? And are we going to always be running to try to find a new planet to try to live on? Do you understand really where I'm going with this?
Yes. And, the answer is, as I said before, humanity has a victimization mind pattern. So a victimization mind pattern will attract tyrants and oppressors, whether it's on this planet or another one. So the ultimate solution is for humanity to eliminate the victimization, and then the tyrants and oppressors have to vanish. It's very simple. It's a question of changing the mind pattern. And once you do that, everything else will change. Everything that's projected out will change.
So a small number of people doing that will change the reality for other people, or those other people will still be living out their own little holographic experience.
Yeah,
running around and
right.
finding different planets to conquer and live on.
Yeah, the ones who change their mind patterns will have that new type of existence, and the ones who don't will remain in their entrapment. It's very simple. We are not responsible for the reactions of others. We must be responsible for our own thoughts and actions and experiences. We cannot take away the experiences of another because we feel it's not right. They have to do that for themselves. And so there will be, those who progress into different ways and those who remain trapped until they change their mind. But I will say that no one remains ignorant forever. So ultimately, things will change. It may be at different rates for different people, but ultimately, everything will change.
I completely agree. And as we begin to wrap this up, Stuart, in your opinion, what will it take for us to break out of this matrix?
Well, like I've been saying, you change the way you think, because it's our thoughts that allowed us to become entrapped. And so when we do our deprogramming work, when we do our release mind pattern work, we grow up the child within, oversoul work, connecting to the God mind, protection, oversoul work, all of these things that raise our vibration, that allow us to see beyond the limited range of the physical energies, then we are no longer entrapped. Then we have an infinite connection to the absolute. And once that occurs, that can never change. because we realize we've always had it, and we've just been blindfolded for a little bit of time, and now we take the blindfolds off, and we are completely free.
Perfect.
I agree.
So we're up to the top of the maximum here on how long you can stay with this. I have a question in the chat room, and I have a caller. Do you think you could hang for just a few seconds here?
For you, I'll do it.
Thank you. Missy Hill. Missy Hill was a guest on one of my shows, and she has a question in the chat room. Can you talk about the effect of TV, movies, Disney video games on the kids and adults, and the MK Ultra Project Monarch, how this is programming the subconscious and the astral body?
Yeah, all of these things I have written about in my 13Q book, and True Reality of Sexuality. TV, movies, radio, books, video games, they're all subliminally programmed with functions that embed into the mind pattern, especially of the young people who do it. And it controls their thought patterns and basically hooks them into a computerized system. So in effect, you have a new generation of Borg who are created, and they cannot think for themselves. They can only think what the computer game, what the TV or movie has told them to do. So yes, this is unfortunately what we're seeing now in young people. When they get inoculated, when they eat foods with preservatives and poisons in them, this puts heavy metals in the body. It enhances the programming capacities. All of these things are what's going on right now. And in fact, it's getting to a point where most of these young people don't know the difference between true reality and fantasy. To them, it's the same. And they're being desensitized to murder and to rape and to violence. They're being desensitized to make this as a normal practice, which is part of the Illuminati agenda and part of reptilian religious belief system. So I don't know if I've actually answered her question. But that's what.
Yes, I agree, and I mean, I guess it starts with the children. It starts in the home to be aware of what's happening, and it's really hard to explain to, your child why they, in particular, can't have that video game, or why, for instance, with the holidays coming up and with Christmas coming up, why you're not going to buy them that particular video game for Christmas. It's a very difficult. We're not, we're not really being the victim here, but we're actually dealing with what's around us with our children, because they've been programmed from a very small age with the television on wanting material things. So it's a matter of deprogramming. And
not only that, I would start, and I have with my own children, to tell them what these holidays really are. They have nothing to do with religion. They have nothing to do with nationality. They have only to do with destruction and death.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, and with giving your energy away to Satanistic rituals.
Exactly.
So I'm going to take this caller in area code 323. Welcome to the Cosmic Awakening Show. And what is your name, please?
My name is Steve in Hollywood.
Steve in Hollywood is your name. Okay, welcome.
Yes, and I wanted to ask Stuart about, well, I'd like to hear him talk about Nibiru and what happened to Nibiru. And I'll go up the air and listen.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Hello, Steve in Hollywood. I used to work in Hollywood many years ago, and it's really a mess out there. But I will tell you that, and I've written about this in my Blue Blood book, Nibiru was destroyed in 2003. In fact, it was destroyed in March of 2003 by a particle beam accelerator that the Illuminati had stationed near Saturn. So, and we're still seeing the pieces of it flying into the sun and going past the Earth. That's why a lot of these meteorites are hitting the Earth, and we see flybys between the moon and the Earth. It's still remnants of this thing. And some of the beings who were on Nibiru tried to escape through the stargates that were underneath Baghdad, and lo and behold, we invaded Baghdad shortly thereafter. And where did the soldiers go first? Right to the museum, right to the basement, right to where the stargates were, and took control of everything. And that's what happened to the Nibiruans. Some of them I know have gone to Kuiper Belt. They were rescued by Kuiper Belt, but the planet Nibiru is gone.
Well, you have so much information out there, and you have a lot of books that are available on Amazon. And I've read from your website, www.expansions.com, that you are helping people to deprogram themselves. And I was also dabbling around a bit and found that you do dream interpretation for people. Right. And your wife, Janet, as well, joins you in being able to use her gifts to tune in to people's energies. In order to do a session with you, you'll need their birth date and their legal name on their birth certificate. And can you explain a little bit about a session and how they can book one with you?
Yes, of course, they can go to customer support at expansions.com and make any of the arrangements they want for a consultation. I do email, phone, Skype. I do all kinds of reports. I do reports on what programming you have, simultaneous existences. I do health analysis, chakra work, color therapy, alternative healing techniques, radionics. I do scans, pretty much any alternative sessions that are offered, we do here at Expansions. Janet does toning, which is quite remarkable the way she does it. And she also, as I mentioned, does organic cooking shows. So go to expansions.com, look up the products and services, and see what you wish. We also have member side where you can watch the videos, you can watch our seminars, webinars. We have an Oversoul Mastermind group. We do seminars here in Michigan, as well as I go all over the world. I'm scheduled to go back to Poland in February and March, and Prague and Vienna. Possibly back to Japan. I do documentaries in all over the world for true world history information that I present to people, which you can see on my YouTube channel. We have a weekly podcast, which is usually up every Monday. And you can see the back ones if you click on expansions.com. It's right on the home page. Yes, everything that you would need to get through this world, we can help you and help raise your vibration.
Wow, you are one busy man and woman with your wife, Janet, as well. Michelle and I would love to thank you for joining us here on the Cosmic Awakening Show. And I'm sure our listeners thoroughly enjoyed it. Our chat room was full. They were asking a lot of great questions. And once again, we greatly appreciate you coming on. And maybe you could come back in the future?
Yes, I would love to. I appreciate you both very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate you coming on as well. And I wish you a very good rest of your evening tonight.
Yes, and you too, and a safe trip for you tomorrow.
Thank you. And you you have a safe trip wherever you're going, whenever you go.
He's coming here to Florida.
Yeah, Florida I try to avoid, but one day maybe.
Oh, goodness. Okay, Stuart. Well, thank you for joining us.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Take
care. Bye-bye.
So we'd like for you to stay tuned to N5D.com for the latest information about the Cosmic Awakening Show. And you can subscribe to BodyMindSoulSpirit.com for the latest articles on the subjects that we've talked about on BMSS Radio, and other wonderful subjects as to how to heat your room for 15 cents a day, basically using ceramic pots and tea light candles, which has reached over 125,000 likes on Facebook, which is amazing how that has gone viral. A special thanks tonight to my sweetheart, Gregg Prescott, for hosting this show with me. You've been taking a hiatus from your Monday night show due to all the work that you're putting into BMSS right now. So I want to thank you for taking the time to host the show with me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Michelle. And I've really had a great time. And what a wonderful guest we had tonight with Stuart.
Yes, and next week's show falls on Thanksgiving, so I'll be taking the week off, and it's not because I'm following the traditions of Thanksgiving necessarily and giving my energy away to basically the slaughter of the Indians, but I will I will actually be somewhere else where I will not have an internet connection to do the show. So my next show will be the following week, December 4th, where I'll be bringing on crystal expert Adrienne Goff back to the show, and I'm very excited about bringing her back. She has, the last show we did, you can find on CosmicStarseeds.com under the video section. Just type in under the search Adrienne, Adrienne, Goff, Goff. She actually talked for 3 hours solid about the different crystals that you can use for healing, clearing, manifestation, anything you can think of, and some crystals that have multiple purposes, but yet she still had more to talk about. After talking, as fast, she talks really fast, and she got a lot of information in, so I'm really looking forward to bringing her back to the show. So we are going to go try to get a midnight snack here on the eastern coast of the United States. And to everybody out there, I just want to wish you, everybody that's live and everybody that joined us on the recording tonight, I'd like to wish you a very good evening. Good night.
Namaste, everyone. Yeah.